If you're out there reading about this game and listening to all of the experts who are talking about this upcoming SEC championship, there aren't a lot of people giving Georgia a chance in this ball game. And to a certain extent, I get it, right? Georgia needed 8 overtimes to beat an ACC team. Texas is playing well. The Dogs are banged up. It's tough to beat a team twice. I get all that. And I do believe Texas is a really, really good football team. But in this video, I'm going to be breaking down what I need to see from Georgia for them to win this game, because I definitely think they can. They've got to go do it, and they've got to hit certain aspects of the game and win those aspects if they're going to win and take that SEC crown, right? So let's jump into it, because I probably think right now that Georgia's got a better chance of winning than most. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't think so. Y'all know me, right? I'm normally pretty right, especially if you've been following me, whatever. Here's what Georgia needs to do outside of the two things that I've talked about earlier this week, right? They have to tackle better. They've got to catch the football. Those are two major weaknesses and themes for this year. They haven't been able to catch the ball consistently all year long. I don't think that's going to change against Texas. I'm just expecting 2-3 drops at minimum from that group. But they've got to tackle better too, and that's something that they've kind of got worse and worse at as the year has gone on, giving up 260 rushing yards to Tech, over 200 against UMass, 160 and 2 scores against Tennessee. They've got to tackle better. But, everyone knows that. But when I look at this game, I think a lot of it's going to come down to Georgia's offensive line. I wrote about this over on Dawg Post. You can read that, but Kirby Smart called it basically a merry-go-round at offensive line. And he's not wrong at all. I mean, not only has it been all season long where they're mixing and matching guys are beat up, guys are, inconsistently doing their job. So they're moving a lot of guys around, but they're doing it like in game and in the middle of drives. And, he said, I've never seen a group that's had to be mixed and matched and moved around so much than this group. And a lot of it is because of, the injuries, and that's why they want to build depth. But Tate Radlich has been injured and banged up most of the year. Xavier Truss at right tackle has been moved all around, and he's not the most consistent guy either. Jared Wilson has been out. They've had to put your Bobo in there. Dylan Fairchild's played all over the place. Micah Morris has been hurt. But I wrote about Monroe Freeling as well. He is the second-year former 5-star tackle, and Kirby Smart had a lot to say about him. But I want to give you these quotes right here if I can pull it up. I'm reading it on Dawg Post. He said, basically we've had a merry-go-round on the offensive line. I've never been around a group that's had to change so many lineups, especially in practice. We've had probably 5 starters miss entire weeks of practice, and it hurts, and it hurts the run game. He said, our running game is not where it's needed to be. I can promise you that. There are a lot of combination in parts of that. That's one of the biggest things we've struggled with, is staying healthy on the offensive line. That would help our run game some, not to mention being healthy at running back would help some as well. So, Georgia's been having a lot of trouble running the ball consistently, especially compared to years past. And when you've got to beat up offensive line and you've got to beat up running back room, it's really hard to establish a running game. And I think it's going to be really tough for Georgia to move the ball on the ground, which means Carson Beck is going to have to throw it 44 times in this game, which leads me to my next point. Limit the turnovers. Carson Beck's done a really good job of that over the last 3 weeks. But the last time he played Texas, 3 interceptions. And he said, I was trying to do too much. Big game, big environment. I knew I had to make some big plays, and I just put the ball in harm's way. I was dangerous with the football. He's gotten better at that. I think 0 interceptions over the last 3 games. He basically led Georgia back with his arm against Tech when they really couldn't run the ball. If he limits the turnovers, I think Georgia's in a really good spot, but that depends on the offensive line. If they can protect him just a little bit longer, that opens things up. That allows the receivers to, a 1 or a 1.5 seconds, 2 seconds maybe, to get that route, going even more, allowing them to get open a little easier. So, the offensive line, if they can get any type of run game going and they can protect Carson Beck a little bit with the help of that run game, I think the offense could move the ball a little better than people think. But I do think it's going to be a struggle. I think this is a low-scoring game. Right now, I'm thinking maybe Georgia 23-17. That's kind of how I see it shaping up. I think Georgia will be able to move the ball here and there. Field goals, maybe a couple touchdowns. But a lot of it's going to come down to their defense. And that comes to, I guess, one of my next points. Cornerback play. Julian Humphrey, boom. Kid's done. He quit on the team. It is what it is. Daniel Harris needs to step up in a big way. Dalen Everett had his best game of his career against the Horns earlier this year with an interception, a big sack, fumble. He's got to be able to play a little bit better too. But if that front seven doesn't attack and get after Quinn Ewers the way they did last time, he's going to have more time to throw the ball, which means he's going to try to chuck the ball a little bit more downfield because they couldn't do that at all against the Dogs in October. I mean, he had no time to do anything, much less wait for receivers to get open vertically. They want to test Georgia down the field. That's where you beat Georgia. You need explosive plays. Texas had none of it in that first matchup. So I expect them to dial up some big plays down the field. They're going to test Daniel Harris, if Ellis Robinson's in there, one of these other backup cornerbacks helping out, those guys are going to be tested. Malachi, Dan Jackson, those guys are going to be tested. But I want to talk about this too. Georgia needs more from Mykel Williams and Malachi Starks. Coming into the season, those have been the two best players on the defense were those guys. Top 15, top 10 picks, maybe. They need more from those guys. Dan Jackson's made more plays, more impactful plays than Malachi Starks this year. Malachi Starks is the Thorpe Award finalist, right? And he's a very good player, one of the best defensive backs in college football. I'm not saying he's not. But Dan Jackson has been making more big-time critical plays, and I think Malachi Starks, if in a position, given an opportunity to make those, he's going to have to make those plays on Saturday. And we need more from Mykel Williams. The guy's a stud, man, and he really has that potential to be a really good player at the next level. And he's making an impact. He's getting pressure. He's getting held a lot too. But at the end of the day, you got to make the play. You got to get the quarterback. And he has flashed big playability, and he's made some drive-stopping plays in the backfield. Just need to be more consistent with it. And he's battled through injuries too, right? This is a beat-up Georgia team, but everyone's beat up right now. So Georgia needs those two guys. They need Jalen Walker to continue to be Jalen Walker. He kind of disappears here and there, but they need a lot from Mykel Williams, Malachi Starks. You know what you're going to get from Dan Jackson. Somewhat inconsistent play here and there, but he's always going to be there to make a big play. For every play where Dan Jackson is maybe out of position or took a bad angle, he's stepping up and making a big play. To even it out. He's made a lot of impactful plays. CJ Allen, he's going to be all over the place. They're going to need him, but they need some aggressiveness. I mean, I thought that Glenn Schumann drew up a great scheme against Texas. They had those quarterbacks absolutely rattled, running for their life. I thought the front seven was winning their one-on-one matchups. They won the game in the trenches, but Glenn Schumann was scheming guys, into the backfield. He was scheming those linebackers to come in free. He schemed Dalen Everett to come on a cornerback blitz and just crush Ewers, who had no idea who was coming, right? They fooled him and they attacked him all game long. And if they do that again, you'd have to say that Texas should be ready for it, right? So what does Glenn Schumann do now to attack Quinn Ewers in a different way than what they did in October, right? So I think this game could come down to scheme for sure, but at the end of the day, the players have to execute. Whatever players execute the game plan the best is going to win this game. And yeah, it's going to come down to scheme and the game plan to win the game, but the players have to go execute that plan. And I think Georgia absolutely has a chance to do it, but that offensive line, that's a battle-tested group. I don't think any other offensive line in college football has had the gauntlet that Georgia's offensive line has. They have played against some of the best defensive fronts in the game, and they're going to have another major battle on their hands because Texas's front is very good. Kirby called them elite like 4 or 5 times already this week. They've got some dogs, and that offensive line is banged up. Monroe Freeling at left tackle is banged up. Ernest Green's banged up. None of those guys are healthy. They're just pushing through the best way they know how. And they've got a war on their hands. If they can hold up just a little bit better than people think, I think the Dogs could have a chance to win this game. And, it is tough to beat a team twice, but I do think this is a favorable matchup for Georgia. At least it was the first time. It's up to the coaches to, do the same thing, get out there with a game plan they think will work and make sure the players are ready for it. But hopefully this won't come down to, some key flags, this or that. I don't want the Zebras to come into play here, but I'm sure they will because it's going to be a tough, hard-hitting game. There's going to be a lot of questionable calls. Some will go Georgia's way, some will go Texas's way, but at the end of the day, you're hoping that the players do what they need to do to get the job done. for either team, right? If you're a Texas fan, you don't want it to come down to the Zebras either. You want your guys to execute. But in this environment, in that crowd, there's no reason to think that Georgia cannot win this game. I totally get why most are expecting or picking Texas to win. I'm just saying, if Georgia can do these little things and play to the standard we've seen them play, at Georgia's best, they can beat anyone in the country. We just haven't seen their best very much at all this year. We've seen glimpses of greatness from this team, and I think they still have it in them. I'm not doubting this team in a big game, in a big moment. This year, this team has shown too much heart, too much passion, too much fight for me to think that they're going to lose to the Texas Longhorns in Atlanta. I think Georgia's going to win the game. They got to go do it. They got to go do it. They can absolutely 100% lose this game. Damn, they almost lost to an ACC team last week. That's inexcusable. Losing to Texas, totally get it. But I think they've got a better chance than people think. Thanks for watching. You can read more about this over on Dawg Post. Really appreciate it, and I'll see you over on the website.